Hey, welcome to That's a Thing Accent Core episode 0.85. It is Monday, August 10th. Yo, I'm Kevin. No one else is here today, which, I don't know. For some of you, probably want to skip this episode, but because on the day of recording, it is August 8th, Saturday, I have just done the impossible and hit Mythic in Magic the Gathering Arena. So I'm just going to be talking about climbing in Magic the Gathering Arena because that's what I've been doing the past couple days. Maybe Drew or Nolan will show up here and they'll talk about something. Who knows? I don't. But whatever. Maybe I could even be wrong, and this will be. And I made a mistake, and they'll be like, "Oh, why aren't you on at 9?" And I was like, "Oh, because I thought it was not 9 o'clock until stuff happened." But who's to know? Anyway, Magic the Arena. So it was around, I think, according to my tweets, like 3 days ago, where, well, really the impetus behind it was a while back. I got to Diamond playing with Orzhov Enchantments, which is a deck kind of anti-aggro, but primarily revolves... Okay, also spoiler warning. If you're not into Magic the Gathering, this is not the one for you, because I'm just going to be talking about cards and not explaining them very well. Okay, so anyway, Orzhov Enchantments was going on. This is pre the Mythic Championship, so this is pre Wilderness Reclamation ban, and Teferi was still legal, and Sacrifice Cat was also legal in Standard. But a lot of the decks, it really was not a fun Standard to play in. I don't like Wilderness Reclamation very much. It's a deck that basically what I would describe as a do nothing deck, where it is a very reactive and extremely based around solving answers, counter spells, etc. I think the closest thing to a reactive deck I like playing is Simic Flash. But even then, Simic Flash, you're usually having at least one or two early game creatures, like a Brightborn Cutthroat or a... I forget, whatever, the wolf that makes more wolves. Like you're putting some kind of threat on the board. It's not removal tribal, which is my I think I heard somewhere where it's just a deck full of kill spells or counter spells, which is kind of what Wilderness Reclamation is. You're just kind of sitting there and countering everything. I don't like that kind of play style. If it gets obnoxious to me. And listen, I'll play a control deck every so often, but man, oh, my throat's gonna get sore of this because, like, I just realized it's just gonna be me talking. Oh boy. No, I'll keep it real. You'll hear me get up and get a drink of water. That's the quality that you deserve, internet. That's what you get. But anyway, like you're going with like, that was the deck that won. It was Reclamation. You had Temur Reclamation, which is red, green, blue Reclamation. You had 4-color Reclamation, which is just basically Temur Reclamation, but you splashed in some white for Teferi. You had a bunch of ramp cards. Oh yeah, Growth Spiral was still in there. Growth Spiral ramp was everywhere. Oh man, it was just kind of... It felt like the deck had been solved, like the game was quote unquote solved, and I didn't like playing it, mainly because I don't have the cards for Temur Reclamation, and that kind of deck, I don't know. It's a slow deck. It's a very slow deck, and you're just kind of sitting there, and sometimes you'll cycle and bring out a big old shark, but whatever. The crux of the matter is they did their Mythic Championship Pro Tour whatever and banned Teferi, Wilderness Reclamation, Growth Spiral, and the Cat. So now the metagame was in shambles. No one knew what was good anymore. And that is where I thrive. Because the decks I tend to like to play work well when no one knows what's going on. So at first I was going with Orzhov enchantments on the assumption that the mono red deck would be number one. It's what people fall back on whenever you don't know how the meta game is shaped up. And I like mono red enchantments. I mean, not mono red enchantments. I like Orzhov enchantments. It's because every one of your enchantments, you're basically getting a 2-for-1. If you have the Hateful Eidolon out, you outvalue the red deck fairly quickly, and you also get the added bonus of anything. There's so much life gain, so if you enchant one of your things with the Demonic Embrace or the All That Glitters, you're getting probably like a 5/5 or like a 4/2 life linker, and that's just hard to outrace that. If you consider like Baneslayer Angels a 5/5 life link, you're getting one of those, something comparable on turn 2, sometimes turn 3. You can get over really quickly. Also, kind of the bans coincided with Historic, the Jumpstart cards coming out, and there's a mono white enchantment deck I like. It's something very similar, but you use the core Enchantress or whatever. It's the thing that lets you draw a card whenever you put an aura on it, and it also gets +2/+2. So those two decks and the historic format and the standard format let me climb very quickly until I was hitting Diamond, which I'd only done once before, and that was 3 days ago. I hit Diamond, and I was like, you know what? We're really early in the month. It's like the second week. I've decided I'm going for Mythic. I'm going to do it. I'm going to actually do the grind and hit Mythic ranked, which is in Magic Arena, the top tier rank. I'm not the top rank of it. That's Mythic 1, or even I think it's top 100. Maybe it's like top 200. I don't know. But that's when actually people matter, and those are the people that get selected to do the Mythic Championship kind of qualifier, so you can qualify for the big tournament that Wizards host. That's like if you see a pro streamer, that's what they're doing. So you get people. I think the one I watch the most is Bloody, and she streams like 8 whenever she's going for it. It's like she goes like 6 hours a day, sometimes even longer. It's like 6 on a low ball, and sometimes it's 10 to 12 hours of just, yep, I'm playing Magic, and I'm like, yo, I can't do that. Because for the past, on the climb, I've been playing Magic for 4 hours a day, and man, it gets on you. I've been playing a little in the morning, about an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and then the remainder in the evening. I will say, one of my pro tips, play Magic in the morning. The latter seems easier in the morning and afternoon. And honestly, you got to pick top tier as well. I think that matters because I think a homebrew kind of random deck, it'll get you to gold, maybe even platinum. I think they changed the win-loss where anything below plat, you're getting two pips in your rank of victory, and you're not losing any. Well, you lose 1 if you're at silver and gold, but you don't lose any if you're in bronze. So it makes it not trivial to get the platinum, but if your win rate is mostly positive, you'll get to platinum, and you can just kind of play whatever to get there. And then once you hit plat, the game begins. And you have to go top tier. I think that's one of the lessons I've learned is, even though I like playing custom kind of games and making my own terrible deck, going top tier is what you got to do once you hit it, because I think the closest thing that I had to it was Street Fighter Third Strike, where you're going like, if you're playing Ken and Chun Li, it's a very different game than if you're playing 13 and oh man, I forgot his name, Sean. Like that's a very very different game, because man. So I think the first deck I tried to go with was the Orzhov enchantments, and I was bouncing, but like the Orzhov and historic enchantments, I was bouncing between them, and they were starting to stall out a little bit, mainly because, and I would learn this later, but mono red decks are the current. If you look on one of like the Magic Arena, or even just Magic the Gathering deck tracking sites, you'll see that mono red deck is number one in there. So you have to deal with it. And the way to deal with it is a lot of early game removal spells so they can't snowball. Because a lot of the way how mono red deck works is you'll play like a 1-drop. Usually it's Fervent Champion, which is a knight that has haste first strike, and it gives other knights +1, which is kind of like self synergy. So you get two of those, and it starts getting bad fast. But then you go into the 2-drop, which is either oh man, I forgot. It's Steamkin, which is a 2-mana 1/1. Wherever you play a red spell, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it until it hits 4 counters. But then you can remove 3 of those, or no, it gets till it hits 3 counters, and then you can remove 3 counters to turn those into red mana to cast more things, which can spiral out of control very quickly. Or they play It's the Robin Hood card. It's 2-mana 2/2 reach, and whenever it attacks, if you have less cards, steal the top card of your opponent's deck. That thing is nasty. And then the 3-drops it has is I said I wouldn't explain it, but I'm going to. Whatever. This is my show. You got Anax, which is kind of your board wipe insurance. You also have the Bone Crusher Giants. Solid card. Dare say one of the most solid cards in the format right now. It's just so useful. It does a lot, and I've discovered it's really really good. It's just you pay 2 mana to deal 2 damage to something, and then pay 3 mana and you put out a creature for 3, and that's really strong. But and then it just curves out with Torbrand, Redfell Man. Torbrand makes all your red stuff do 2 more damage, or Embercleave, which will win you the game. And that's just kind of what mono red is. And then there's some filler. Some people run, and then like a lot of decks in Magic, I would say are, at least the top decks, are like 90% the same, and then have 10% kind of tweaked cards depending on what the person likes. So for like with the red deck, some people run the card, I can't remember talking. It's the 1-mana 1/1 that you can pay a mana and make it unblockable except for Defender. Or some I've seen you throw in the I think the one I ran for a bit had the Phoenix in there. It's the 3-mana 2/2 haste flying that can come back to life if need be. Sometimes you'll see a couple shocks or removal spells thrown in there. Helps in the mirror match. But most of the decks are the same. Like if you know the archetype, you know 90% of the cards in there. So I was trying to prey on that deck, but the reason why it didn't work too well and why I was actually starting to stall and I think in the streams you could see me kind of stalling, was the two decks I had played, which was Orzhov Enchantments and Rakdos Sacrifice, also rely on minions and creatures that have around 2 health, which means that if you're focused on playing, if you're focused on trying to deal with the mono red deck, you'll also be hitting my decks by association. So we're both basically, you have two. I'm trying to counter the top deck, which at the time was mono red, but you're also, every other deck understands that mono red, the things that counter mono red also hurt mine. So I was really struggling because I was getting blown out real hard really quickly. I was just hitting, like, and I think on the stream you can see it was frustrating because Rakdos Sacrifice is a good deck. I think it's still a good deck. I think it's a little bit better in Historic where you have the cat oven, but it's still good. It's still solid. It's just if mono green ever usurps mono red as the best deck, mono green's kind of hanging out there. It's close. It hasn't been played a lot, but I think it could come into. I think mono green is the thing to look out for because it's very solid. It might lose. It loses a couple of important cards in rotation, though. Specifically, Pelt Collector. Losing Pelt Collector is kind of really huge for mono green because that card set up a lot. It sets up a great deal. It's because Pelt Collector does its job, does it well. You know, you get a lot of stuff going on here. Man, I'm just thinking that maybe I made a mistake, and maybe it'll be some kind of shenanigans of, oh, this might just be a Magic the Gathering podcast. And I'll just be like, hey, just forget about That's a Thing episode, whatever. I'll just put the screenshot of me hitting Mythic. Put that up there. Yeah. Well, whatever. So yeah, we got that going on. So anyway, yeah, I was struggling, and then I just said, in my experience playing, the deck that was giving me the most trouble was Temur Adventures. That deck was always a problem. Like mono red, I could handle, and some of the more greedy control decks I could handle. I have not been seeing the cycling deck very much. I think the cycling deck is good, and it may get better post-rotation, but the cycling deck does struggle for mono red because you hit an basically Ember Cleave on Anax is a problem. And the cycling deck can't develop, has to have a board to develop. But I think that's the deck that I would be most worried about because all of its cards are in one expansion. You're not going to have to worry about stuff rotating out. The cycling deck loses nothing, and that may come into play if the meta, because I think every other deck will be losing things. Cycling isn't going to lose anything, which could be a problem. Even Temur Adventures is actually losing a lot, which is the deck I ran. I think it's the strongest deck. Everything in it just synergizes so well. It kind of fell away because Temur Reclamation does it a little bit better. You don't have creature. You have 0 creature reliance on Temur Reclamation. Effectively, you just got to keep your. All you have to do with that deck is you just keep your your wilderness reclamation alive. And weirdly enough, a lot of the same cards are used between both of them. You'll see in Temur, you get the Brazen Borrowers are in both decks. You'll see the Bone Crusher Giants are in both decks. I think they both run the Fae of Wishes, the thing that lets you just grab a card from your sideboard, which is still super good. Because you just got a toolbox of Planeswalkers in there. And what really helped was in M21, at least for Temur Adventures, you got Ugin. A lot of the games that I played in Temur Adventures basically revolves around me getting a clover, a lucky clover or two on the field, which each one of those allows you to copy your adventures. So you have a giant, I forget the name, but whatever. You have a giant that allows its adventure spell is you get to put mana just untapped onto the board, which is cool because it costs 3, but if you have two of the clovers on field, then you're paying 3 mana to get 3 untapped lands onto the field, which means it's free, and that's backbreaking. And then you basically get a build a board. You have a bunch of you have early game prevention. You have Bone Crushers to deal. Bone Crusher Giant, honestly, is what deals with mono red if you're any kind of control deck, because sniping out a Steamkin you snipe out a Steamkin or you snipe out I forget, the Robin Hood, get him out of there, and the deck starts to follow. It's really tempo reliant, and you can just kind of... And the 3 health on the giant means it can't be reversaled as easily. That's nice. The Lonesome Beast? The Beauty and the Beast card, where its spell is it makes a 1/1, and then its creature is you get a 5/5 that can't attack unless you have a 1/1. Which doesn't really matter because you're just using that thing to block most of the time. Yeah, and it's your early game synergize as well. I was surprised at how well a card I thought was terrible for most of the time it was an Eldraine, which is Escape to the Wilds. The 5 mana draw or exile 5 cards, and you can play 2 lands, and then you can play... It might be even 7 cards. You exile a lot. I think it's exile 5. I'll look it up. No. Fact checking will ruin the podcast. Never. But anyway, that card does a lot whenever because you're ramping very quickly. And honestly, Temur Adventures feels like it has no bad matchups. There's definitely matchups it's worse against. Any deck can still get blown out turn 3 by red deck wins. Like it is what it is. That's how it's always going to be. And I just feel that deck, you can do something against anything. Even counterspelly control decks, you still have ways to get mana out and ways to get some kind of early game. That's really why I've grown to like it. Is it's a control deck that still plays cards. And I think that's important. You're casting cards, you're summoning creatures, you're playing artifacts, and that's what I like to do in card games. I like to play the cards. I don't like to hoard the pile of resources and just play one and then go, okay, your turn. Unless I have something on the field, and then that changes. But that's how that goes. So I did it. I think Temur Adventure is real good. The biggest problem with that deck that I see is on rotation. You're not losing any of the creatures, but you are going to be losing. What's key is your mana base is going to get way worse because you're losing the shock lands, which was actually a very key part of doing that deck to make it work. I had to craft. Did I craft a lot of those lands? I think I already had the Simic ones. The 4 Simic ones I already crafted. And then I had to craft like 2 or 3 of the other kind of lands in between the green, blue, and red. But man, those going away is going to make that deck way less consistent. It almost makes me think it might turn into a 2-color deck, like a Simic deck. Because you lose the Bone Crushers. Although, I don't know. See, that's what I'm thinking. Because it might be fine if your Giants will still change they can search out the red mana you might need. So you might still be able to run it. I think it's going to get way less consistent unless the new Zendikar set has some really good lands. But other than that, I think this deck it's a standard deck, but it's not going to be like Historic's not going to work in Historic. Well, I don't know, maybe. I haven't tried it in Historic. I think, but Historic. Oh yeah, Amonkhet's coming, so Historic meta is going to get really shifted with the Amonkhet cards. So that's going to be interesting. But I think now I get to kind of play other things, which is really great. There's like a little thing. Noise suppression. Yeah, I don't want noise suppression. I don't want that. Click that out of here. But yeah, it's a solid deck. I think if you are looking to climb in Magic Arena, that and you have a lot of cards. So like don't spend all your wild cards and stuff on a top tier deck. That would be my number one advice. Because at least if you're free to play, which I am free to play. Haven't spent a dime or a penny, but I have spent a lot of time on Magic the Arena. So it's kind of, I have a decent collection, and you get gem rolls from drafting, which I'll have to do again. I'm kind of excited to draft again. Yeah, so don't waste all of your wild cards and stuff on a top tier deck just because you want to climb. Don't worry about it. It's kind of like I always try to do the approach of just play the card game, and then when you're like, okay, I need a top tier deck, and then look at the one that inevitably you'll already have 80% of the cards ready for it, and then you can just craft the remaining 20% and say, okay, here we go. This is the for real deck. I think that's way more healthy than trying to just craft it sight unseen. Also, don't craft jank. Don't do that. Unless it's just a good card and you're just doing it. I say that as I crafted 4 Elder Gargaroths, which I still think that card is good. I've played that card and it's won me games. It's not good enough that's so weird because that card is great. The card is great. It has so many words on it, and when it resolves, it's game over. It's really game over. I'd say the shocking decks I discovered on my climb was there was a day, for some reason, I think that was on stream, I kept hitting the Simic Mutate deck. And then there was like a Sultai Mutate deck. Mutate decks started showing up. And that was weird to me. Because I was not expecting the Mutate decks to show up. I haven't seen them normally. But there's like a couple days, they were just everywhere. And it was causing problems. At least for my Sacrifice deck, because I couldn't establish a board presence. They kept bouncing my creatures and then summoning more and ramping. I was like, what is this? But that was an Aberration. I encountered a couple Esper Doom Foretold decks. Those are tricky, but the Temur Adventures can handle it because of all your ramp and your adventure creatures. You can kind of force it out. You have to do a lot of weird plays with Temur Adventure. And I think also one of the things is you need to understand how to use your sideboard correctly. Not because I just played best of ones, but because you have the Fae of Wishes, your sideboard is a toolkit, and that toolkit is how you win the game or solve the problem. So you need to know, usually grabbing an Ugin is fine. Grabbing an Ugin is always okay. Just grab Ugin in there. If you have 8 mana, and play him and win. But there's also stuff like maybe you need to grab the 4 mana board wipe. Maybe you need to grab a counterspell or two. Maybe you need to pull out the lantern that just says exile opponent's graveyard. That came up once. Sometimes Sorcerer's Spyglass comes up, where it's the artifact where you just say you turn off the activated abilities of something. If there's a troublesome planeswalker out there. I did that on a Narset, the Jeskai Narset, and the person just quit. So that's just always nice. You're like, gotcha. Grafdigger's Cage is also quite good. It just stops things from coming into play. Gets rid of those nasty little escape cards. But yeah, like Temur Adventures. Solid deck. I hated that deck for a long time. And honestly, I still kind of do. I don't dislike it because it got me to there. But I can understand why I hated it. Because unless you're doing a very control or something Oko related. Listen, I liked Simic Oko. Simic Oko was great. That deck was fantastic. I loved it, even though it was terrible and probably worse for the game. But it's the kind of deck I like to play. It's just you play cards. Man, it's great. I would also say, yeah, I encountered a bunch of mono white life gain decks, which was kind of interesting. As that approach to deal with the red deck. And I just I think mono white life gain works better in historic than it does in standard. I can understand people trying to it's obvious why you sub that in, because it's, hey, if the most aggressive red deck is trying to kill all my life total, then why not I play the thing that just gets me a lot of life? I think the problem is that mono white life gain is really easy to deal with. Sometimes it's easy to deal with. I had problems. It can be like any deck, once you hit diamond, any deck can beat you if it draws correctly. Really, that's the same in Magic the Gathering total. But it's just how well does it have to draw to beat you? And Simic, the reason why I think Temur Adventures is so good is it doesn't have to draw that well. You just need like you can mulligan once or twice and still be okay. Which is very, I think, telling of the strength of a deck. Is if you can mulligan and be like, yeah, this is fine. Because some of the decks I've played where you'll mulligan once and then it's like, well, now I'm done. I'm always behind. Simic Flash, I remember, is if your card advantage goes down, it's really hard because you're trying to play a creature and then trade 1-for-1 with counterspells. But if you can't do that, it's dire. It's real dire. I'm trying to look at this, and it's like sometimes it's not connecting very well. Man, I've been going for 30 minutes. All right. So anyway, what other things do I have to say about Magic the Gathering? I'm glad I'm not gonna be playing it for 4 hours a day anymore. I've briefly debated like maybe I should say, hey, I'm gonna go for like number one mythic on the server, but that's too much. And I kind of have like I kind of want to also get to I think it's master rank in Runeterra because I'm in diamond in that game as well. I've been kind of slacking on it, but I think it'd be kind of cool to have that. My grand goal of to get in the highest ranking tier in both of the card games, so then I could do the new quest of defeating Fortnite and winning a game of Fortnite. Because I was like, yo, what other things about Magic would I talk about? I'm kind of interested to see what rotation's gonna bring. I'm not sure. Amonkhet, I'm because if memory serves, from what I've heard through the grapevine, a lot of mono red got really really oppressive in Amonkhet, which I don't know if that would. I don't think Teamer can deal with the stuff that was hitting there. I remember hearing stuff like it was not Hazoret, but whoa, there's some nasty things going on there, which is going to make Historic interesting. Historic is really interesting. I like that. I think there's a lot of stuff you could do in old Historic. I think the Scarab God is showing up again. I kind of wish more Historic Brawl was a thing. I haven't been playing Brawl that much because it's kind of standard cards, and a lot of the weirder cards I would like to play with are in Historic. Maybe I should do a stream where I do a little bit of Brawl. Brawl was really fun until a quote unquote meta established itself, and you couldn't just do your kind of, here's my stupid pile of cards that I like, I'm gonna throw them in the deck and hopefully it'll work. That's to me, that's what Brawl in the Commander format should be, is just throw garbage and see if it works. I also wish that they would, so like if I was Wizards of the Coast, I would be very strict with Brawl bannings. I would ban, like, if a card is too good, I'd ban it in Brawl, because it's not a problem. And they have banned cards like Winota and stuff in Brawl, but I would just be like, yo, this card's good, it's gone. Just get it out. Get Teferi out of there. 3 fairy. 4 fairy's still good. Oh yeah, maybe the stupid Teferi Milk deck might work. I don't know. Maybe. Might be a little not good enough. That's questionable. Maybe I should put like Bone Crusher Giant in there. Let's say if I had to think about safe craft cards coming into rotation, Sight Unseen. I still think I think Cycling is safe. I think mythic wise, honestly, Embercleave's going to be good. Someone's going to figure out something with Embercleave. There's too much power there to just blow up a game. Brazen Borrower, I think in blue is a safe craft. It's just it's good in almost any blue deck. I think Bone Crusher Giant is a very safe craft. I think that card gets you a lot of value for very little investment. Eldraine, a lot of Eldraine. Oh yeah, I forgot. When I was climbing, I did attempt a couple days using Mardu Knights, because I like that flavor of kind of aggressive deck, the Knight deck. Also, you get to use the land, I think it's like Challenging Grounds, where you get it's just a land that can tap for black, red, or white, but you can only play Knight or equipment spells, which if you're playing Mardu Knights, that's all you got in there. So you're kind of, you're like, all right, sick land. Your mana base is weirdly strong for a 3-color deck. And that deck was pretty fun. It suffers because, once again, I think aggro is being over targeted, which means if you're an aggro deck or a reliant on aggro deck, it's just not very good. So Temur right now, Temur Adventure, at least on 8/8. Apparently that's Vor Day, but that's what I recommend. That's what got me to Mythic. And if you play Magic, playing Magic Arena, just think about it. Temur Adventure, probably it's good for now. Might not be good post rotation. Who knows what? Unless we get a bunch of new good dual lands. If Zendikar has good dual lands, then Temur Adventure will still be safe. That deck will do fine. It's going to depend on mana base. Or if Wizards doesn't print something really stupid. Something really stupid. I mean, like, dumb. I did see a couple of the... I think it's the guy that got second, the mono black aggro deck, which was fascinating. The only reason why I didn't gravitate towards that one is it has a lot of Rotting Regisaurs, which I'm always somewhat hesitant, at least I was somewhat hesitant, to craft a rare that is not a land if it's going to rotate like in 2 months. That always makes me nervous. Whereas even if you... So like land-based... Crafting a land base sucks. It sucks to use your cards on lands. Your rare wild cards on lands. But I think I'm starting to come around to it because those cards can still be played in the Eternal format, which, at least for now, in Arena is somewhat well supported. So it does matter. Where Rotting Regisaur might not show up in every deck, but the what was it called? The Simic, or like the Golgari dual land, not the Guildgate, but the one where you go the shock land. That's always going to kind of be pretty good. It's always going to work. You're going to throw that in every 2 color, sometimes 3 and 4 color decks if you're using green and black. So it's kind of those are a bit safer. Even if you're running something janky, like you just throw that in. I think Fabled Passage kind of similarly. That's good craft. Fabled Passage, good little land. I think I'm talked out about Magic the Gathering. Talked about 40 minutes about it. Hopefully you enjoyed me rambling about it. If you hear this, maybe we'll do a real podcast later. Maybe I was mistaken. It's happened before. Anyway, thanks for listening. Play on Magic, or just tweet me up. I'll give you some pro tips. Let you know how to do it. I'll tell you, just go to like the Magic the Gathering deck site and copy one of their decks. Because really, if you're gonna play top tier, if you're gonna climb to Mythic, just play top tier. You gotta stomach it. Yeah, you might not be the master brewer. Just play your top tier. And then go in play mode and just kind of make something stupid. Also quit. I will end it on there were times when I was getting frustrated on the climb, and I would just close the game and walk away. Because it's not worth getting mad about. There's too much variance in Magic as is. You can't control the guy to just, or your opponent just destroying everything you have every turn, or the deck that runs all counter spells that just countered every one of your creatures. Just worked out that way. So don't take it too personal. Anyway, later days. Bye.